we're going to do is take you on a tour of an exciting new technology called IP Marketplace, which essentially changes the way you can browse for IP and you can select IP and actually learn a significant amount about things like power performance and area for particular pieces of IP. In this case, the IP offered by eSilicon, which is primarily compilable memories and specialty I/O. You can essentially try before you buy and learn a lot about the technology and the selections so that you know what you're buying is exactly what you need for your SoC. So I'm joined by Lisa Minwell, who heads the marketing for our IP product line. She's going to take you through a little bit of an overview of IP Marketplace and then take you to a live demo right on the internet to show you how the technology actually works. I will point out that access to IP Marketplace is free and there are no obligations. You simply need to go to our website and register for an account, and then you have complete access to the technology to browse our IP, and we'll talk about that a little later. One last piece of logistics here is that we have everyone on mute to ensure that the sound quality is good. So if you have a question, you have a chat window in the lower left corner of your screen. Please type in questions there, and we'll be happy to address those during the webinar. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lisa, and she can take you on a tour of IP Marketplace.
Hello, everybody. First, I'd like to point out where IP Marketplace sits in our suite of online tools. We have several tools that we've been releasing over the last 2 years or so that enable our customers to be able to order MPWs online, be able to get quotes real time for MPWs, GDS2. Our customers have been able to track their silicon, their manufacturing online and even on their cell phones. So this is something that we've been doing for a few years, and we're continuing to expand our online tool offering with IP Marketplace. There's one login that we use across all of these tools. So once you register to use a tool, then you'll be able to use that same login for any of these particular tools. So an overview of IP Marketplace before we start the demo. We released IP Marketplace in December, where you're able to, at this point, view, download, generate instances, and download EDA views to use these products, IP products, in your design. You're also able to do a PPA analysis very easily, driven by graphics to, at a very high level, you can have an idea of whether or not a memory will meet the needs of your particular design and might help you decide on the technology node that you may want to be using. The next release it will be in the March timeframe, and at that point we'll be turning on the cart. So this particular product is a true, online purchasing experience. At this point, you have the ability to use and download, but you don't have the ability to use the online cart. That'll be turned on towards the end of March. So it'll be a traditional sort of PO order at this point in time if you find what it is that you like. There is a wish list that's in the tool as well, so you can keep track of the different IP products that you're interested in using. The products that are available in IP Marketplace are all eSilicon developed IP. So this will be growing over time. Our initial offering has 4 different foundries and multiple technologies. We have memory IP and I/O libraries currently available that we have developed. And over time, you'll see other types of IP from eSilicon, such as interface IP, additional memory compilers, standard cell libraries, etc. So as we develop products either for our customers or for ourselves, we'll be placing them into my IP Marketplace for our customers to use and to try before they buy. So with that, I will transition over to the demo, and we'll walk through IP Marketplace and cover some of these points.
transitioning over, I just want to remind everyone you do have that chat window in the lower left to send us questions. So feel free to do that. We'll address them during the webinar.
Okay, so I have already logged into IP Marketplace. And once you log in, the first screen that you come to is a screen that is a catalog of the IP products that are available. We envision that customers will most likely want to use this table in the middle, whereby if you click on that foundry and technology combination, it will show you all of the IP available in IP Marketplace on that technology node at that foundry. There is a list of products on the left-hand side. You could look at all of the products by categories. So if you wanted to look at all the memory products that are available, if you clicked on that link, it would show you all those products across with multiple technologies and foundries. If you're interested in looking at it by fab, you can do that as well. You'll notice that, as I had mentioned earlier, the categories of IP that we have there at this point are memory products and I/O products, but we expect this to be expanding fairly quickly over time to include interface IP and other types of IP that we develop. At the top, you can see that there are multiple selections. IP products is the page that we're in right now. There's memory subsystem analysis, PPA evaluation, the ability to request a product, and then, of course, contact us. So we'll walk through each of those during the demo. There's also a wish list that is enabled in the upper right-hand corner, and you'll notice that the cart is disabled at this point in time. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to select TSMC 28 nanometer. And when I do that, these are all of the products that we have available on that technology. So this includes memory products. What you'll see is that each product is a color-coded icon. So all of our TSMC products are color-coded red for that particular foundry. And then there's an icon for the IP. So there's a TCAM, an asynchronous register file. These are dual-port, single-port SRAMs. Then we have some specialty IOs, I2C, LVDS, and DDR-IO as well. So these are the IP that we have available currently on this technology node. Then when you find, if there's an IP product that's of interest to you, if you click on that link, it will take you to a page that will give you a high-level description of the features and options for that particular IP. With that, it'll give you an idea of whether or not that's something that's going to meet your needs from a feature perspective. You don't have to go open a user manual or a data sheet to get that type of information. Towards the bottom, you can see that there are several links available to you, these links include the Silicon report. So if you click on the Silicon report, you can actually open it and be able to see exactly what has transpired from a silicon validation perspective for this IP. So you have that immediately at your fingertips. You don't have that time wasted of requesting it and getting access to that particular data. The other is the user manual, so the same idea. And with this, if you're unfamiliar with the IP, it would be very beneficial to keep that open, especially from a memory compiler perspective, because the next step would be to generate a memory instance or your whole memory subsystem, if you'd like, for your chip, and it would be useful to understand the options and the capabilities of that particular memory compiler as you're going through those steps. So that's the user manual. Those are available for every piece of IP that is on IP Marketplace. So the next thing would be two different ways of going about this. One would be what is the general PPA characteristics of this particular ternary CAM compiler. So if I wanted to do that, I could go to PPA evaluation. Or let's say there was a particular instance that I wanted to generate, or I wanted to start generating my memory subsystem. If I click on that generate an instance link, it'll bring up a page that will enable that. And there's nothing unusual about this. Multiple IP providers enable a similar type of online memory compilation. But in this particular case, if you hit the create PPA data, what it will do is it will create every different possible option for that instance that you generate. So in other words, if there are multiple compile time options here in the bottom left, or if there are multiple column mux options, this will, when you click this, it will run through and generate all of those options for you in a table format. In this particular case, I'll just generate a 128 by 128 instance. I'm going to turn on the priority encoder. I'm going to take a look at the data sheet. No, let's change that. I'll take a look at all of the front-end views, so I'll just click that button and turn those views on. Your case, when you log in initially, these back-end views such as the GDS, you'll notice will be grayed out because you will have to request additional privileges to gain access to that, and I'll walk you through that process. And then in the bottom right corner, these are the PVTs that are available for the compiler. You'll notice that in many cases we may have more PVTs than maybe the standard IP that you would see off the shelf because we do a lot of optimizations for our own ASICs and for our customers, and we make those PVTs available to our customers through IP MarketPlace. But I'll go ahead and I'll just turn on the slow corner and I'll turn on the fast corner. So I'm going to run two PVTs. I could say select all, and I'm going to hit run. So now what it is doing is it is going to set this up to actually run this particular instance and generate it. What I would do next is I would either generate more instances either from this compiler or from other compilers and begin to decide what my memory subsystem would look like. Now, another approach is you can go into the memory subsystem analysis, and at this point you have a tab called My Modules, okay? So these are all the modules that I've been working on and generating, and you'll notice that this 128 by 128 now is off and running, and I have the ability to stop it. And also, I have the ability now that I've gotten some experience with this compiler. Let's say I wanted to generate multiple instances. I would click on this little Excel spreadsheet icon. When I open that up, what will happen is I will see this particular instance that I ran and all of the options, the views, the PVTs that I have selected are going to show up in one row. So you have one row per memory instance. And now if I wish to generate more instances of that same compiler, I can copy that row. I can prepare this to basically be a batch job to run multiple instances at once and kick that off. Now I could also, if I wanted to, add other compiler architectures as well, and I could have one large Excel file that I would use to upload and then start that batch run. So this is a very easy way then to be able to generate your whole memory subsystem, if you will, and also kind of keep track of the different options that you have selected. And the way that you would do that is you would click on this upload button here, and then it gives you this window where you can browse and locate that particular file and go ahead and upload it. And then what you'll notice is you'll see all of those jobs sort of teed up, and you can hit run to go ahead and run those particular compilers, or I mean that particular memory subsystem. So that's how this particular page works. Now if you've generated an instance and it's completed, what you'll see is this little download icon. If you click on that particular icon, what you'll see are all the views that are available that you've selected for this particular instance. And so you can select if you want to download all of those views or some of those views. You'll click the download button, and you can save those to your computer. And at this point now you'll have a tar.gz file with all of the information that you need and all of the views that you need to be able to actually use this piece of IP in your design. So this is the whole try before you buy. It's that simple. So that's the download button. Now, another way to take a look at the various pieces of IP that we have is by going to this Home tab. And in the Home tab, you can see all of the different IP as well that are available. So that's yet another way of sort of perusing the IP as you go along. So in this case, I've shown you, basically how to generate an instance, how to create a batch file, and then how to download the views. Now, let's say that you want to take a look at the power, performance, and area of particular compilers in a technology node. And this, you could want to do this for a few reasons. One might be that you're in a particular technology and you're wondering, do I want to move from 65 to 40 nanometer or to 28 nanometer? What would be my differences? Will this particular IP meet the criteria that I have established for my spec, for my product? So when you hit PPA analysis, now you have the ability to basically take a look at the data in a few different approaches. This particular y-axis that I'm kind of showing you here is there's a graph that shows up below this particular table, and in this graph dynamically updates as you progress and want to take a look at a particular architecture in a particular technology. So if we took a look at TSMC 28 nanometer, this TCAM, and if we wanted to take a look at, sweeping through this whole compiler, we can turn on, whatever various number of words or sweep through the whole thing. We can look at, one aspect of the number of bits. For example, let's say you wanted to take a look at everything by 32, and it's going to automatically update this particular curve. It will also update by adding, when you add additional PVTs that you want to take a look at. Now what you're noticing is that this curve isn't really changing, and that's because this curve at this point in time is showing area. Area is not dependent on the PVT selection, so it's really not going to give you a different set of data. But if you wanted to turn on, for example, the memory access time, now what you see for this, this CAM compiler is a separate curve per PVT, and you can kind of start to see the range of the capabilities of this particular compiler for the memory access time. So at this point in time, I've got the number of words showing up on the bottom as my axis, and if I wanted to sort of change how I want to look at this, I can select this, use this choose y-axis selection to change the way that this shows up in the graph. Now, the other aspect to this is, let's say I wanted to take a look at the data and download this data for this compiler into Microsoft Excel. Let's say I wanted to do maybe a power budget analysis or what have you. You will have all of the PPA data show up in this table below the particular graph, and you have the ability then to export this and then utilize this data and analyze this data in whatever fashion that you need to help you decide on the appropriate, let's say the appropriate memory instance size or configuration of some kind. So that's basically how you use this. The other ability that you have is that you could also do a product comparison. So you could actually click here and then select two different memory architectures, for example, that you might want to take a look at. So for example, you could turn on 40 nanometer or 28 nanometer. Hang on. So one other thing I wanted to point out is when you select a compiler, basically what will happen is it will, if you select the fab, it will also update the technology and the architectures that are available. So you can see as you select, Dongbu, for example, 40 nanometer, those architectures are not there. What is available are a series of compilers on either 130 nanometer or 180 nanometer. So if I wanted to compare, for example, multi-technologies, in this case, I could compare TSMC 28 against TSMC 40 and see, do I want to migrate my design down to either 40 nanometer or 28, for example. I can go ahead, select a particular compiler, grab that, take a look at that data. So at this case, I'm showing this ternary cam again. Let's say I wanted to take a look at, 128 by 32. Then I'm able to see, for that instance, immediately the comparison of the area between 40 and 28 nanometer. I can also take a look at my memory access time in the same fashion. I could look at multiple instance configurations, so I could turn on, a 512 by 32 as well. And now you're starting to see some lines on this graph, and you can really understand the difference and help make a decision on whether I wanted to migrate to the next technology node or jump one. So that's very beneficial as far as trying to make those types of decisions for your design. The other example would be taking a look at multiple architectures. So if you wanted to look at 28 nanometer and you wanted to see how the TCAM compared to, let's say, the single port SRAM, I can turn both of those guys on. I can take a look at, 512, I can kind of take a look at a 256 by 32, for example, and you'll get the same sort of comparison that would show up down below. So it's a very useful tool. The next thing I wanted to show you is, let's say that you have gone through these processes and you found that either you want to order the GDS, you've tried it in your design, and you want to be able to now have the access to the GDS and potentially do a purchase. You would come into the request a product page and you would select, I would like to generate the back-end views of the selected IP. Once you do that, then you'll say, okay, you'll mention exactly its memory, its TSMC, and if you want all for that technology, you have the ability to select all of the technologies that we have for TSMC, or if you are wanting access to 28 nanometers specifically, and then that particular ternary CAM, then now you have isolated this down to, I want to request the GDS for 28 nanometer TCAM TSMC foundry. Now, what happens if you've done this, you've generated your memory subsystem, you've analyzed everything, and you would like to see something a little bit different that's not currently available? This is also your place where you could make an additional request. So let's say the ternary CAM didn't have a feature you were looking for, or you wanted to sort of tweak and have maybe lower power or have it a little bit faster. This is where you can put in an additional request to specifically state, hey, I'd really need to see that 128 by 128 TCAM, run at 2 gigahertz, for example. And my power budget, I can increase the power budget a little bit to do that. You'll hit this submit button, it will go off and it'll initiate basically a request for information process on our side. We'll go off, we'll analyze it, and we'll respond to you. And that's what we do here at eSilicon. We are here to optimize and give you differentiated IP that will enable your design to really shine in the marketplace and enable you to meet your particular design specs. So this request a product page, can be used to differentiate an IP that currently exists. The other is others. Let's say there's a piece of IP that you don't see out there. This would be another way to initiate a request to say, hey, I'd like to see some IP. I have a need for this specialty IO or what have you on this particular technology and foundry, and it'll again initiate that RFI process. There's the wish list, another way to keep track of the IP that you have been using and that you're interested in. And this would be yet another way to be able to communicate on what you might want to purchase in the future. So that's a high-level overview of IP Marketplace, and we're ready to take questions.
Yeah, we do have several questions here. So let's start with this one. Do you plan to support the 55 nanometer node?
Oh, yes. Actually, you will likely see IP on the 55 nanometer nodes, maybe even in the next few quarters. So yes, that is something that we will be providing.
Okay. There's another question here on process corners. It's a function of our product data sheet. Can we easily request custom corners?
Oh yes, absolutely. And actually, we envision some tools in the future, expanding IP Marketplace to enable our customers to be able to generate additional PVTs for memory instances on their own. So that's an expansion that we plan on. And in the near term, if there is a PVT that you would like, that request a product page would be the avenue with which you would do that.
Okay. This next question, actually next couple questions, kind of broaden the horizon a little bit. It's a question about die size estimation. It would be useful to be able to determine in what if scenarios, more memory, less memory, different kinds of SerDes, budgeting die size. So a little bit of a bigger question around how, beyond just memory, but estimating the whole chip. On this one, I can make a comment here. If you've been watching what eSilicon's been up to, we've been systematically bringing more and more of the choice, procurement, quoting process online. A little over a year ago, we introduced a multi-project wafer quoting tool. Middle of last year, we introduced a GDS2 tape-out quoting tool that we did exclusively with TSMC. And then IP Marketplace was introduced in December of last year. This is clearly not the end. There's many more tools coming. So the response to that question is yes, there's technology coming to the internet that will help you with things like what-if scenarios on die size, on performance, not just at the IP level, which is what IP Marketplace will address, but at the full chip level. So stay tuned. More technology coming from eSilicon as we go forward. Another question here is sort of, okay, this is really nice to be able to compare your memories, but what about third-party IP and other memories or technology available from other vendors?
Yes, absolutely. You can see that this would be a nice avenue to provide additional IP from other providers, and we envision that that is a step that we could take in the future. So stay tuned. At this point in time, it is our IP, but we do envision that that could be something that we would roll out in the future.
Exactly. Yeah, I guess the comment I would make there is this: we're on a bit of new ground here. Every one of these online technologies is blazing a new trail. So we're respectful of the fact that we are on new territory. We're getting great customer feedback, by the way. Last year we did a fairly extensive market research project to try and measure interest and sentiment around big data, cloud, and the internet, and how those things can help address technical problems. And we went deep on some of them. Great feedback, by the way. But the point is, this is very new technology. We want to establish the right credibility, the right robustness, ensure that the model is correct, and when we do that, then we'll look at expanding it to other partners. But I will tell you that we've already got several unsolicited calls from our IP partners saying, hey, we saw this thing you did. If you're doing it broadly, count us in. Here's my phone number. Call me back when you're ready. So we have a number of those calls and kind of a waiting list, if you will, of vendors. So yes, we will be addressing that. But we want to first establish the baseline and the robustness and the model. And as Lisa pointed out, we'll be adding online procurement of IP on the internet, which is again another frontier that we'll be addressing, something very new. So stay tuned, more to come there. Last question here, and then we'll wrap up because we wanted to keep this to around 30 minutes. Any plans to support SOI processes from IBM GlobalFoundries?
Oh yes, yes, absolutely. In fact, we are currently working in those technologies, so you will see IP in IP Marketplace shortly. And our focus has been, we've been building a lot of very specialized, very low power memory compilers, and these are really targeting the IoT market. And so you will notice that there are some instances, very specific memory instances on IP Marketplace that are very low power, very geared towards IoT. So we put out not just memory compilers, but also memory instances or memory macros that we develop, and you might find that there's one on the 40 nanometer technology node today that would be a benefit for you. But yes, the SOI technologies will be showing up in IP Marketplace very shortly.
Okay, so with that, we'll conclude the webinar. I had mentioned at the start that IP Marketplace is available free of charge. There are no obligations to buy from eSilicon. It is an online tool that is there to help you make the right decisions for your next SoC. Simply go to our website, www.esilicon.com. Right in the dead center of the website, you'll see our new online tools complement the 4 products I mentioned before: MPW quoting, GDS2 quoting, IP Marketplace, and then we also have a technology for our current customers for work-in-process tracking that's been around actually for a long time called eSilicon Access. So if you're a customer of eSilicon, you can log on to that and see where your parts are anywhere in the supply chain worldwide with about a 3-hour latency and know exactly when they'll be delivered, which has been a very valuable tool for our customers. Frankly, we use it to run our business every day. So please go to our website. You have a sign-up button there, and what you'll be presented with is a very short form to fill out to let us know who you are. And then there are check boxes at the top of the form to request access to